Uh, okay, so I will call the meeting to order and roll call. Paula Hancock,
Here.
Kathleen DeWolf,
Yeah.
and also here Susan McLeod, our land use assistant, and Mardine Badger is here. Minutes of November 4th. Let's do that first.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of Wednesday, November 4th, 2020 as presented.
Okay. And a second.
Second.
All right. Any other questions, corrections, anything? Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Paula Hancock,
Aye.
and Mardine Badger, aye. Approved. Okay. If you note at the end of the second page, at the end of page 3 in the minutes, I added links to some of the presentations that we've had at Lakes Region Planning Commission lately. Some they're very interesting. You'll see quite a range of things. We had another excellent presentation the other night, Monday night, which was 2 authors of a book, Communities and Consequences, and this is version 2. Their first version was in 2008. There is a PBS, I believe it's a PBS, New Hampshire PBS presentation on TV about that. I'm going to get hold of the book and have it accessible for the planning board.
Okay.
It talks a lot about demography of the state, population, types of economy, what could the future look like? Because there have been a lot of changes since their last book. One very interesting statistic that they gave had to do with median age. The median age of the United States is around 36 to 38. The median age in New Hampshire is 42. We are the second oldest state in the US. The oldest county in New Hampshire is Carroll County. Their median age is 52. State is getting older. We are having
people are retiring here.
People are retiring here, and the younger people are not staying.
Here.
They had a very interesting presentation. It was not a PowerPoint presentation. The 2 authors spoke at length. I'm going to try to get a recording of them. I know they recorded it at LRPC. I'm going to try to get access to the recording because there was a lot of good discussion, good questions, but a lot of facts came out, and a lot of the issues that New Hampshire is facing as far as economy and growth and what impacts it. So I'll see if I can get hold of that. But these other things listed at the end of the minutes, last meeting's minutes, those are pretty much all PowerPoint presentations.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So just
Do you want that link? Do you want that the link you're talking about to be included in the minutes for this meeting?
If I can get hold of it.
Okay, let me know.
Okay. Yeah. I'll see what I can get. Okay. The next thing I want to do is jump ahead to one little item, the 2021 Planning Board calendar. I've looked it over and over. Can't find any problems at this point. Of course, it's all subject to change anyway. But I think I would like us to take a vote on this calendar for 2021.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2021 Ashland Planning Board schedule.
And a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. And this is, as I said, it does have a note at the bottom that meeting details are subject to change. Roll call vote, Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Paula Hancock,
Aye.
Mardine Badger, aye. Approved. Okay. And I will put this up on the website now. Get that up. Okay. The Robin and Stephen Hyde from 299 River Street will not be with us tonight. They are still working on their plan. We're waiting for some probably some information from their surveyor of some sort. So eventually they will be back to us. They were the ones that had bought the group of 4 cabins over on the other end of the covered bridge on River Street. And they came to us at one meeting to discuss some of the options that they may be able to consider. So they will be back to us at some point.
Okay.
Waiver of site plan review for David Farnham. We had this in our packet last week. And we need to make a decision tonight of some sort. The property owner is Chris Lane. It's at 6 Mill Street. The applicant or the tenant is David Farnham. And his business name is Farnham Towing and Recovery. He is asking for a waiver of a site plan review. He is renting space in one of Lane's buildings in the mill area. The application was missing a few items. I do have the information. They were not on the application originally. The tax map and lot number is 017-008-002. Zoning district, I believe it straddles the industrial commercial zone right up at the end of the street. The other piece that was not, another piece that was not filled in is what they are requesting a waiver from. What is typically in that spot is section 1.3A of the site plan review regulations, which requires a site plan review when a property changes owners or tenant, a commercial property changes owners or tenant. So that would be what would normally be put there. There was no signature of the owner and no signature of the agent. So that's what we first had with those missing pieces. Then, Susan, can you give us a little background as to what you've had conversations with them in reference to?
Several weeks ago, he actually came into the town office because somebody had prodded him.
Is this
Mr.
Farnham?
Farnham? Yes.
That he needed something to do with the planning board if he was going to have his business there. And what he initially said was he was only going to use the exterior. The parking lot was going to be someplace where he stored what he was towing, sometimes even for the police department. So we had a discussion, and I gave him the form, and I said within that form we had to have either a letter of authorization or the signature of the property owner, Chris or Andrew Lane, as part of the application. And it took a little while, and then it appeared, and again, it was incomplete. And what I said, if he, in lieu of a letter of authorization, that if he also supplied a copy of the lease that he has with the Lanes, which would explain exactly what part of the property he was leasing, and that the property owner understood that that's what he was doing, and that would indicate that the property owner was aware of the use. And at that time, he said that he was also leasing some interior part of a building, but that was only for his personal use, that he was, I don't know, storing car parts or whatever. And that's probably what got more of the attention that brought him to the office to begin with. So I also at that point advised him to make it very clear, and maybe again through the wording in the lease, or that there were two leases, or one way or another, that he clarified the actual amount of property that he was leasing for this particular business. And then that the application floated back, and a lease or any other attachment never appeared. I got a rather, at first, hot and irate phone call from the wife, and explained to her that I had not received all the information that was requested. And then in talking to Mardine about this agenda, excuse me, I prodded him once again by actually calling him to say that his application at this point was still incomplete.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
And excuse me.
Why don't I do have the lease. Want me to just give you a chance to catch your breath and then,
Sure.
okay. The lease appeared in the office probably late yesterday or this morning. I don't know if Susan has had a chance to look at it. It may have come after she was gone. I have it in front of me. I'm just going to read a couple parts. Most of it is boilerplate lease language, dealing with utilities, entry and inspection, insurance, eminent domain, destruction, all kinds of things, standard lease language. But two little pieces are relevant to this application. At the very beginning, it identifies who the lease is between, and it's leasing the premises described as the northeast corner of the building from the former powder coat area to the door to Mechanic Street, and 2,200 square feet of former loading dock space in the warehouse at 6 Mill Street. So it includes interior and exterior from that description.
Okay.
The other piece that is relevant is use. Lessee shall use and occupy the premises for car repairs and storage of up to 10 cars and a towing business. The premises shall be used for no other purpose. So those are two things that I've pulled out of the lease. As I said, the other is standard regardless of who is leasing what. Those are the two descriptive pieces.
So if
Okay.
he has, the loading dock is on Mill Street and the back portion is on Mechanic, that means it spans the river.
Yeah, so it's the northeast corner of the building from the former powder coat area to the door to Mechanic Street.
Yeah, that doesn't
So
mean. that-
that's interior.
Right.
And then 2,200 square feet of former loading dock space. That would be the exterior.
Right. So that's where the martial arts studio is, and where his office used to be.
Okay.
And where Dollar and More used to be.
Okay,
Okay.
yes,
That's
yes,
the loading dock area, correct?
Yeah.
right, yes. Mhm. And the use, as I said, was for car repairs and storage of up to 10 cars and a towing business. Okay,
And that's why I
Those-
said, it not only spans the river, but it is adjacent to the river.
yes,
Yeah, well,
Okay.
when he first said that the interior was for his storage only, and he mentioned car parts and everything, I said, well, because you're close to the river, anything to do with fuels or liquids of any sort, you have to have proper containment, and that might involve at least some kind of DES permit or the planning board at least requesting some type of conditions that those be met. And that's where he backed off and said it was only for private use. And I guess it's more difficult to tell anybody for their private use what they can do and not do. But when I talked to him Monday, he said, well, what if I was going to use the interior part for my business? So here we go.
Mhm.
And once again, I said, the usual recommendation when you're dealing with anybody who is thinking of what their business would become, I said it would be easier to ask for the maximum of what you think you can do, what you're going to do, instead of having to come back and amend it every time you want to expand. So think about exactly what you're asking for in the way of space that defines the use for the business. But if all he brought in the lease, then he's really not explained much more of the extent of this business, because he basically implied the first time it was storage, that as he towed things and to store, that it wasn't necessarily going to be they resided there for long periods of time, or that they would actually be worked on in the way of anything mechanical.
Mhm.
So that is a different thing from towing and storage.
Yes. Now, on his Facebook page, which is titled Farnham's Towing and Recovery, under the more info and where it says about, it says Farnham's Towing and Recovery is open for 24-hour towing, lockouts, jump starting, flat tires, and we also buy junk cars and trucks.
We do what?
And
Buy
we
junk?
also buy junk cars and trucks.
So anything more than two without registered license plates becomes a junkyard.
And they are prohibited in Ashland from section 3.5 of the zoning ordinance. The only one that is in business in Ashland is Buskey's. They are a pre-existing non-conforming use that came in there, since grandfather came into being before zoning ordinance was established. So other than that, our zoning ordinance prohibits junkyards.
Now, not,
Go ahead.
we have life and safety issues there too. If there's flammable materials of any sort, whether it's parts or vehicles, or whatever he's storing, there has to be fire suppression, doesn't it? It has,
Could be.
I would think so. And that part of the building no longer has the
my
sprinklers
understanding.
operational.
no,
Yeah.
And as I mentioned to him about containment measures to be taken when you're draining oil or
Mhm.
other lubricants or something out of a vehicle. You can't just do it onto the floor and then let it wash down into the river.
Right. Mhm.
I heard information, of course, it's hearsay, and the person who asked me about it referred to it as a chop shop business, which means more than just storage. It means taking cars apart, not necessarily repairing them. But
So we have basically three options. And they run the gamut from approving the site plan. We have the options ranging from approving the waiver of a site plan review, approving it with conditions, denying it based on incomplete information, or denying it for other reasons and other information needed. So we've got that range of options.
Right, because it could be that you deny it as a waiver and require a full site plan with more plans as to how to handle what type of business this appears to be.
Yeah.
Now, in zoning for that area, Are there certain activities that are not allowed?
Let me look. Okay, at the very one end of the building, I think straddles commercial a little bit, but is predominantly industrial. Let's see. Or industrial commercial. Industrial commercial, let's see. The following uses are permitted. And this is industrial commercial. Manufacturing, packing, processing, and warehousing. Railroad and trucking uses, offices and printing facilities. Research and or testing facilities. Storage yards. Accessory uses. Stores and shops for the conduct of any wholesale or retail business. Offices, banks, personal services, medical facilities. Auto service stations and garages, theaters, halls and clubs, communication towers. That's industrial commercial.
So, I mean, it's possible you could say he's a warehouse, that he's creating components that he's warehousing and then selling.
Yeah, but that's us making
An assumption.
an
And so-
assumption, right?
Well, right now, what I would put forward is that we do not accept the application because it's incomplete. We need more information.
If we do that, I think we need to cite some very specific reasons
Okay,
beyond, obviously, there's information missing, and we could include that.
but we
al-
don't know what he's looking, why is he looking for a site waiver? He must feel that that business is not allowed
Yeah.
there and he wants that waived. I don't know, am I reading something into it?
Well, I think one of the reasons, if we deny it, I think one of the reasons would be something to the effect that we need more information on the nature of the business and what, basically what's being done there,
Yeah,
inside and
I-
outside.
Yeah, I think what we really need and ask him specifically for is a detailed understanding of what exactly he's going to do with that business, what he's going to do with the parts, what he's going to do with the stored cars, etc., and figure out the actual parameters of the business. At the present moment, it sounds to me like he's being very vague, and as long as he's very vague, he can say, well, this was what I was thinking of 6 months ago. I just didn't happen to mention it to you. So what I would do is sit down with him and say, what exactly are you thinking as far as the full extent of your business? And if you're selling parts of cars, do we need to take into account that there will be trucks or something else? Once you've sold the piece, someone needs to come get it. Does that include service trucks to come get the parts, et cetera, et cetera? Are we talking about the need for salesmen if coming in, if you're putting the parts out to be bought, things like this?
Mhm, mhm.
And I think we really need to understand what he's doing with the business, how he is, what he sees as far as a plan, as far as containment of fuels, and also what his plan might be in place for protecting the river,
Mhm.
because it's so close to the river, it can be easily polluted, and it needs some sort of sprinkler system and or, for lack of a better word, a firewall, something to protect his business should a spark ignite inside. How can he contain the fire? And this is not what I'm hearing from the information we have to date. And I think if he really wants the business and he really wants it to take off and fly, he needs to come before us, possibly with this application more filled out. But we also might think about an informal consultation with him to get an idea as to what he's thinking as far as the business is concerned.
Well, the business has been there for a while.
It has been, yeah. The Facebook page is not that old. I think a couple months old. But I believe the business has been there for a while. The
And
date,
they're doing that to attract business. Or
yeah. Let's see.
Well, it's also where you define, I mean, junkyards also sell parts. That's what they
Yes.
do. They have all these
Mhm.
vehicles that have been smashed or otherwise undrivable,
Right.
and take them apart to be able to sell whatever is salvageable.
Yeah.
So he has to clearly distinguish the difference between a junkyard and his salvage or
Mhm.
parts
reclaim or whatever.
reclaim. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what he does with the parts that are unsaleable, and what he plans to do as far as disposal of same.
Oh, that's a point. Didn't think of that, you know. Well,
Yeah, he could take in a car, for example, and when he looks at it, he says, "Well, the headlights are salvageable, but the body isn't." So he sells the headlights and whatever other parts are saleable, and then he's got the rest of the chassis. And what is he gonna do with it? Is he gonna send it out to another company as scrap metal, or is everything going to be accumulated until he falls under the definition of a junkyard? And then the town is going to have a hard time, if that becomes the case, of being able to tell him that under the zoning ordinance he no longer has a business because it's considered a junkyard. And that just gets into a harder place to negotiate, where if we know what he's going to do with the various parts, what he's going to sell, what parts unsaleable, and what he's going to do with the unsaleable parts, so that we avoid the definition of a junkyard, which may not be too far down the road if he continues to.
When I drove by there today, there were 2 or 3. He's got multiple tow trucks. And there were at least a couple there. There were probably 2 or 3 cars that were obviously, they looked like they were not drivable. They looked like they were damaged. I think maybe I don't remember whether they were all up on flatbeds or some on flatbeds and some not. There were multiple vehicles of one kind or another in that whole outer area. It was just kind of jam-packed.
yes, because that was just a loading dock back in the day. It wasn't meant for vehicles.
Parking area.
Yeah, parking area.
Yeah,
Yeah, somebody
yeah.
drove up, loaded, unloaded, and went on their way.
Yeah.
Um,
Am I sensing that, first of all, we would deny this waiver of the site plan review? Is
I
that the
agree with
sense
that.
I'm getting? Okay. What, now we could, we deny it, we could tell him, obviously, the application itself needs to be complete. We could also ask, or could we require him to meet with us face to face, as we're doing now, for him to explain what the business is and for us to ask questions. So that could be, we could have that as a requirement if he reapplies for a waiver of the site plan review, or suggest that he apply for a full site plan review. And I believe, Susan, am I correct, that we do have options to waive certain things in the site plan, in the full site plan review.
Yeah, I think that whole thing is, for most of these long established commercial or now industrial buildings, we don't really ask for complete surveys anymore.
Right, right.
But you can look down the list of the checklist of what else we require in the way of information in order to approve. I mean, I don't think in the history of the planning board, they've necessarily disapproved any kind of particular individual business from operating.
Right.
However, it is something that needs a closer look. I mean, I think the first I heard of this too was through somebody in the fire department who was very concerned about anything that happens in those mill buildings that should a fire break out. And if there's a business that can possibly be a little more prone to those types of accidents, I think it makes some of the people in the fire department rather nervous. So it would be, even with the usual waivers in the past, we've always asked for an inspection from the fire department and or the building inspector to, the condition is if you pass the safety and, you know, the fire and safety code inspection, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
So I think that they really should be involved in this. For
Definitely.
input.
Yes.
Is there any reason we can't ask for a full site plan review and then, dependent upon his explanation, et cetera, ask that parts of the site plan review be waived?
That's what
Can
I
we
was
do
just
that?
looking at. I'm looking at the application. Obviously, the beginning part of the full site plan review application is standard identification of the people and the property in place
Yeah,
and
this
the
isn't like
agent.
he's going into a business that was already there, that was like what he's doing now. This is a
Yeah.
completely new use of the
Very
building.
different.
It's
Yes.
definitely a change of use, not only
It
of the
is.
tenant, but the use itself. And that's where
Yes.
you could also say that
Mhm.
we want to, or you decide that part of the site plan review is that abutters are notified.
That's what I was just, and the next section before the abutters is a description of your proposal. Then there's the list of abutters. Then obviously the fees.
Because we have apartment houses nearby,
Yes.
I should say residential
Yeah.
buildings.
So the thing that probably we could waive, obviously, is the section that asks for the 8 copies of a site plan. It's that type of thing. But I still think we would want some sort of a diagram as to where things are in this building.
Yeah, a floor plan. I
Exactly.
think in the
Floor
past
plan.
with the,
Mhm.
with the grow operation,
Yes.
it was discussed as to what part of the building they would be using, and they didn't want to publish a full
Right.
plan of what they want to keep under wraps.
Mhm.
But usually it would be for a partial use of a building that they were leasing, they would also have a floor plan as to
What part?
what the use is.
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
We asked that of Scott's auto.
For repair, yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Who I don't think exists any longer.
There doesn't seem to be much activity there, and well, it's hard to tell because he also drove a school bus that used to be parked down there during the day.
Yeah. Okay. First,
Okay, yeah, we've got to
Yeah.
put into proper sequence.
yes. First, we need to make a decision on the application for the waiver of a site plan review.
I'll make a motion not to accept the application for site plan waiver review. Do I have to say why?
Yes.
It's
Due for incomplete application.
I'll second that.
I would suggest we also add, I'm thinking to add something to help us get to the next step.
Okay.
incomplete information and
Lack of signatures?
no.
Okay.
Lack of
Lack of
description,
proposal.
lack of description of the,
The nature of the business itself.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Lack of description of the nature of the business itself.
Especially since it could touch on that junkyard definition.
Yes,
From
yes.
the information ascertained from the Facebook page.
Mhm, yeah. Um,
so you want to read that motion back when you're done, Mardine, and
let's see.
unless you want to just, yeah, read it back and you can make the motion.
Okay, the motion is to not accept the application due to it being incomplete and lack of, and needing clarification of the nature of the business. Okay, so the motion is made by Kathleen, to not accept the application because it is incomplete and because it needs clarification of the nature of the business. That makes sense?
Yeah, but we don't put the extra because in there. You got two because.
Yeah, we'll fix the,
Yeah, the nature of the business as it fits into the zoning. I don't know, because you're making references as to whether or not what definition of this business would be acceptable or not acceptable.
Without your input, Susan, all I had to go on was that application that left all of that blank.
mhm,
You know, and we're not in the position to guess what somebody is looking for or what their business is. It has to be explained on the application.
the issue we have is obviously the waiver application does not ask. Well, all it says is if commercial tenant, include business name and specific type of business.
Well, I mean, right now, I mean, he didn't. He's doing things backwards. He's asking for a site waiver for a business that wasn't approved in the first place.
Yeah,
Whereas-
he's doing it after the fact. We know
That's
that.
after the fact,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
That
And
does
I
happen.
think his
That's,
very first approach was that it was going to be putting stuff outside only, as he towed it there, because it was, whether it was, the police need a car that they've stopped on the highway and they've taken somebody into custody and somebody comes up and picks up the car.
Okay.
mhm,
It almost sounded similar to like the PD's version of impound place
Yeah.
here locally in
Yeah.
Ashland.
mhm.
So it sounded like it would only be there temporarily for one reason or another.
Yeah. And I will say, every time I've driven by, it's been different vehicles out there. It's not as if the same 2 or 3 unusable cars are sitting out there forever and ever and ever.
Now, how about a front?
It's
But now
constantly
they're going
changing.
inside, which wasn't part of the discussion initially.
And is he using the Glidden parking area across the street? I saw a large
There's a tractor trailer
trailer, yeah,
without the cab. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's his or not. I
yeah.
have no idea. Mhm.
Well, that's a John Glidden headache.
Mhm.
That's right. That's Glidden property, not Lane
Yep.
property.
Mhm. Okay, so we are not accepting the application because it is incomplete and it needs clarification on the nature of the business.
What do you,
Okay, so that's the motion.
that's the motion.
Okay, Kathleen, and then Paula, you seconded. Is that wording all right with you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
and Mardine, aye. Okay, so not accepted. Okay,
We know who's gonna get the phone call.
and that's why if we can give as much direction now as to what we do want next from him.
I can't understand why he couldn't even just get a written, a little note with the, like a permission slip from the landowner saying that, yes, you know, I, the landowner, et cetera.
Yeah.
Just sometimes it bothers me that just fill out an application, you're more than halfway there.
Okay, now,
Don't leave anything blank. I feel it draws attention. Why is this blank? What aren't you telling us?
what is our recommendation to hit
Okay,
the next step?
well, Paula said, you know, it does give us an opportunity if they come in front of the board to explain what they're doing. And we can ask questions, and it's not always a bad thing.
Would we accept another waiver application with a couple conditions that he meet with us to explain the type of business? Or do we, or a full site plan review application, and instead of the formal surveyed
Yeah.
site plan, having a diagram, a
I
floor
would go
plan
more
of
for
what's
that
gonna be.
because I'm not familiar with the layout of that building. I don't know what it looked like. Well, yeah, I went in there when it was still -32, but gosh, that was so long ago, and it just looked like a mill building, like warehouse space. That, yeah, we really want to know exactly, you know, what's the plan? What do you want to do? And what Susan said,
I
if you
think
think of expanding this in any way, this is the time that you inform us. Looking for a waiver for something that wasn't even approved in the first place. I personally don't like that.
I think we really do need a full site plan review for this particular application because his intentions are so vague.
Mhm.
And on a full site plan review, he needs to put into more detail what he has in mind. And then on top of that, I would put in the condition that he needs to meet with us to discuss.
Obviously, he will.
Mhm.
To discuss his plan.
Mhm.
And then we can get into junkyards and that definition and what the zoning ordinance allows in the zone that he's in. I mean, we can get into that part of the conversation, but I think a full site plan review would give us the details that we're looking for, because a waiver of a site plan review, I think he'll just give us some details, but I think it gives them the option of shortcutting, and that's what we don't need. We need full details, and a full site plan review, I think, would be our way to get it.
Mhm.
We have to do our due diligence on our side too.
We do, yeah. Mhm.
Now, this is not what we like or don't like. This is.
Yeah. So this, I think, would be a recommendation
Mhm.
that we will put in the minutes, that he submit the application for site plan review, that the actual form
Mhm.
complete. We will accept a floor plan of the area that he is using
Mhm.
instead of the surveyed site plan that's required in section 2. So we would substitute that. Section 3, we do Ask for a description of the proposal, and obviously we will need that. We will need to fill out the abutter list and pay the appropriate fees
Mhm.
and meet with us when we have the formal hearing.
You know, and the bottom line is this protects his interests. You know,
It
there's
does,
nothing
it
worse than
does.
to go get so far
Mhm.
into doing something and then
Mhm.
have being told it's not allowed, you must remove it.
Mhm.
And, you know, this is to protect his business interests.
Yes, it is. It is. Protect his business and protect everyone else around.
Yep.
And that's part of our responsibility, is to protect the community also.
So Susan can tell him that we don't need the full site plan with the 8 copies. Just we need.
I think there'll be some pseudo notice of decision as to what
Okay.
your vote was tonight.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
And
Mhm.
outline what his next step is in order to be
Yes.
a legitimate business here in town.
Right. Yeah. We'll kind of put that all in the,
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
okay. Okay. Have we covered everything on that one? I think so. And I don't, Susan, you hadn't seen the copy of the lease yet, had you? Did it come in after
No,
you left?
when
Okay.
I talked to him on Monday, he said he would bring it to the
Mhm.
town office, and I don't know whether he appeared there on Tuesday or even this morning.
I don't know. Yeah. And I will bring it back into the office tomorrow. So it's all set. Okay. Our next piece is,
Oh, boy.
yes,
Doesn't get any better.
I
No,
know it. Okay.
let's get this baby done.
Yeah. Okay. The commercial earth excavation regulations, the draft. We have had it reviewed by Susan Slack, principal planner and attorney with LRPC. And we've had it reviewed by Laura Spector Morgan of the Mitchell Group, who is the town attorney. And the copy that has we have one copy that has both Susan Slack's additions and Laura Spector Morgan's comments. Let's go right through page 1 down at the very bottom. We're under Roman numeral 3, section B. If you've got a color version copy of it, it's in red, but it's letter B, approving a butter is the definition. That was suggested by LRPC. I think it's very clear.
I do too.
So
I do too.
I would say fine with that.
So can we do if I vote, or can we just have?
Let's just go through this.
Okay, okay,
There are going to be a few questions,
okay,
but the consensus is that's okay, correct?
okay, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna put a check mark next to it then.
okay. Page 2, letter G, commercial excavation. The attorney's comment said it was inconsistent with the RSA, and I don't have a problem with deleting the sentence that she marked.
Which is,
It's
The last one, any commercially useful earth material
No.
leaving the property
No,
for
wait a
whatever
minute.
reason is considered to be a commercial operation.
no, the section that she had marked is, where's my other copy? The section that she had marked was in the middle of it.
oh,
This may
This
also
may also include
excavation
excavation.
that is
that is
strictly
strictly-
conducted for the purpose of alteration, renovation, improvement, or construction to the property on which the excavation takes place. It's that sentence in the middle
okay,
that she had an issue with.
Well, you
And-
want to read the actual section in 155?
Yes.
No
Please do,
permit shall
Maudine.
be required for the following types of excavations. Excavation that is exclusively incidental to the construction or alteration of a building or structure, or the construction or alteration of a parking lot or way, including a driveway on a portion of the premises where the removal occurs. Provided, however, that no such excavation shall be commenced without a permit under this chapter unless all state and local permits required for the construction or alteration of the building, structure, parking lot, or way have been issued.
Mhm.
Okay.
But in this section, we are just defining what commercial excavation is.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're excavating that material and you're gonna be using it for your building or construction for your construction, it's not considered commercial. If you take it off-site, then it would be deemed commercial.
So is she just pointing out that it's not in the right section to be,
I think, I
uh,
do think it does not belong there. I think we may have it elsewhere, but I do, I
Yeah.
feel it does not belong under that definition.
So so to strike that middle section,
I would say at this point, strike that sentence. Not to say we won't review it again.
okay. That's all that was on. that
Okay,
page.
that's all on that page. Page 3. Incidental excavation is a whole, letter R, incidental
Mhm.
excavation is a whole brand new piece that Susan Slack suggested to include. Laura says there's a conflict, and also she questioned
The amount.
the cubic yards.
Mhm.
yeah, everything,
Yeah.
everything else is to 1,000, but
Okay.
Yes. And definitely I would say if it stays there, it should be 1,000.
Okay.
Now, this is the same section she cited on the other one,
Oh,
E2A1A. E2A1A, yeah. Okay,
so what is it
incidental.
exactly? Yeah, this is where,
That it contradicts, okay.
this is where, as a lawyer who's supposed to be serving this town and clarifying things for us, she shouldn't just say this contradicts. She should either specify what it's contradicting
okay.
or provide alternative wording.
Yes, that
That
would have,
should be her
al-
job, not to
alternative wording would have
us
helped. Yeah.
second guess what she's saying
Yeah.
and try again, folks, and I'll charge you again.
What I read is you can't keep stockpiling stuff. If you're gonna use it, you need to use it within 90 days.
Yeah, because you have to, it says you need the permit, so that's not the conflict.
Mhm.
I have to admit, when I did this, I go, well, I don't know what the issue was. Is it the 90 days?
And then I've got it, then there's
I
also,
mean, these are just definitions.
yeah, these are definitions.
Yeah, it's, to me, I read it, incidental means some of the site work that's done, maybe to make a landing area for lumber to be delivered. And whatever soil that you took from that area, you need to find a use for it within 90 days. So you don't have piles of dirt stockpiled here and there. It says prior to initiate the primary use. And if you're removing more than that, it's not just incidental. If you're removing more than 1,000 cubic yards, this is just not, like incidental would be like site prep. Where maybe you bring in a bulldozer and you push some stuff around. Maybe some boulders have to be moved out of the way. Yeah, you can't just go in and move things around and then just let it sit and not act on it. Because then it's not an incidental use.
I would say on the one we had problem with on the previous page, the definition under commercial excavation. That one, this definition under incidental. And on the next page, she also had a problem under Roman numeral 5A3. She had a problem with the second half of that one, which again gets into
What's incidental?
Yeah, I would think maybe we may want her to clarify those three pieces. They seem to be somewhat connected.
Yeah,
At least, definitely the first two are connected, and the third one also deals with incidental excavation.
well, I don't know if adding a detail is necessarily contradictory, because I thought it was always that an RSA is the baseline of which you cannot be less than.
Right, right.
But any municipality can be more than, as long as it,
Yeah.
because the way I'm reading certainly the incidental and the whole idea that if you're doing it as a building site, then you can't be doing that without all the other permits for being a building site.
Right, right.
And if you start removing, well, whether it's the 2,000 or 1,000 cubic yards of material, then you're using that building site for exploiting that amount of material to either sell directly or use somewhere else or whatever. But it becomes whoever's doing the excavation is using that material for other than the purpose on that lot.
Yeah. I could see under the commercial excavation, I can kind of understand deleting that sentence.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have as much of a problem with that one. The incidental excavation, for a definition, is it too specific? I don't know. Should that be elsewhere? Some of that detail?
Yeah, because I don't know
That
what
one-
the issue is.
Yeah, this one I don't understand. The definition of incidental excavation. So I think we want clarification on that one.
Because the definitions in certainly 155E, there is very limited. There's
It is. Definition is extremely limited. Yes.
5 of them.
Yeah.
One of which is excavation means a land area which is used or has been used for the commercial taking of earth, including all slopes.
Yes, that's it.
So incidental, it just means if you're moving dirt around or removing it from one place and moving it somewhere else or whatever else is incidental to the primary thing that you're trying to build. You're digging a foundation, you're leveling out a parking lot, whatever. So
we'll get clarification on the incidental excavation comments. Moving on, letter X down further down the page, visual barrier.
I thought that was a good definition.
I do too. I agree with that one.
How about you, Susan? Since you've had issues with berms.
I like that addition there. What do you feel, Paula?
I thought it was well written. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah. So we'll leave that one. We'll say okay on that one. Okay. Let's try to keep moving here. Page 4, we've got a few things here. Under number 3, the last sentence in that is a sentence that Susan Slack
about
added.
This is about incidental again.
It is.
And what's unconstitutionally vague mean?
I know what vague means.
Yeah, I do too.
How do
Mike.
we, and what basically on that she would be asking, how is the planning board going to determine that it's incidental? What criteria you're going to use?
Which we
And that's what she
did,
asked.
which was explained on the prior page under definition.
Could be. Yeah.
Could be.
So we'll get a little clarification on that one too.
That whole section, number 5.
Relation. No, just number 3.
Where am I?
Number 3, the last sentence.
Section 5.
Section Roman numeral 5. We're on page 4.
Yeah.
Right. She's saying
Uh,
section 5, and you're saying number 3.
Number
Number
3.
Oh,
three.
okay, all right.
Yes.
You know, because I've
Yes.
got the black and white copy, didn't see
Yeah.
that.
Okay. That's why I'm trying to describe which ones we're talking about. So if I don't do it right, let me know. Okay. So it's the last sentence in number 3 that is the question. And it was one that Susan Slack added. Laura Spector Morgan questioned that. So we'll get clarification on that one.
Yeah, it just says no permit shall be required for excavation that is incidental to agricultural or silvicultural activities, normal landscaping, or minor topographical adjustment. Minor is very important there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Define
And
mine.
what's
Yep.
And what's minor to one excavator is not necessarily minor to another.
Another judgment call. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so we'll get clarification on that. Number 5.
Okay, now we're on number 5.
Now, the only that whole section, all of number 5 was added by Susan Slack. And the only thing that Laura Spector Morgan did was change Arabic numbers to Roman numerals.
Oh,
That's all she did.
oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that's the blue in there.
Yes. Yes. So that's no problem. And I had no problem with the wording of it. It looked fine to me.
See, had no clue what it was. Didn't realize it was just changing.
Yeah, it was the second time when I looked at it that I figured out what she was doing. Yeah.
Now I see it.
Yeah, yeah, I do now, but when I read it, I go, what? Yeah.
Yes, okay. Is that language, additional language acceptable?
Yes, because of the whole, class 4 and 5 highway, or the class of the highways type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. And number 7 at the bottom, I think is pretty, and it continues a little bit to the next page. I think is pretty straightforward. Feelings from the others?
No, I don't have an issue with that.
I don't either.
Okay. Page 5. We are down at number 6. That starts out where the issuance of a permit would be unduly hazardous.
There should be a comma there, the board. Why is that contrary? And why is it vague?
There is, if you look at, I looked up E4.
E4 prohibited projects, where it will violate
No,
operational.
you've got to So you look at 155E4, then go down to Roman numeral 4. When the issuance, so basically this, if you've got to go back up. So this is regulator shall not grant a permit when the issuance of a permit would be unduly hazardous or injurious to the public welfare.
And we
That's what
define,
this says.
Yes. Noise, dust, traffic, fumes, and
Yes.
danger in
As
our own
injurious.
zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
So that
And they do in the RSA for when you're doing a special
yes,
exception.
yes.
Yeah,
So I would say leave that.
yeah, I agree.
I
I
don't
would
see how
too.
it's contrary.
So
I
it's
don't-
contrary and vague.
It's language, part of the language is in the excavation RSA, part of the language comes from
From our
basically
ordinance.
our ordinance. Yeah. So I would say leave it. Page 6. We're in section Roman numeral 9, operational standards.
Here we get to the nitty gritty.
Well, and I see what she was doing. We have, the first sentence is clear. All excavations requiring a permit must comply with the operational standards pursuant to RSA 155E4A, which are considered to be the minimum. Period. That's good. The next sentence talks about, basically says the planning board can
Mhm.
impose more strict standards.
Mm-hmm,
That's what we do there.
yeah. That's
So
how
why
I
are
read it.
why are we saying may be applied? If we want these as standards, let's not say may be applied. for
Oh,
one thing.
okay.
How about saying something about that first sentence, then all excavations requiring a permit must also comply with the following standards. And those are the ones below, which the planning board may waive under certain defined circumstances. So first we set that they must comply with our additional standards
Mhm,
unless we decide to waive them.
mhm.
It's a little
Yeah,
different
that makes sense.
wording, but
Yeah.
I think, does that seem to get at what she's talking about? Because she says, I suggest these be the standards and that the planning board be empowered to waive them under certain defined circumstances. So instead of saying more stringent standards may be
May be
applied,
You say
we will apply
Yeah, they will
We-
apply unless
we say otherwise.
waived.
So
We
it's a
want to
matter
say
of
will or shall. Which
Uh,
will we use?
must and shall.
Well, must.
Well, yeah. The
Okay.
first sentence uses must, we can be
Yeah.
consistent. But I think that fixes what she had there.
Right. She just wanted to flip it to say the most stringent applies unless the planning board deems they can waive
Yes,
some of,
yes.
instead of saying,
Yeah.
well, we may decide to apply the most stringent.
But we don't want to say that acceptable hours of operation, we might apply them. We first are going to apply them, say they do apply, and then if we decide to waive them, we can. Okay, so I think that fixes that. It took me a while to work that through.
Yeah, you see, I guess I was approaching this in a totally different way.
Okay,
So that's why I was getting so confused. It's like, yeah,
well, yeah, I was for a while too. Okay, page 7. The whole section from number 3 down through 9 were added by Susan Slack.
mhm.
Um,
She's saying all of this is confusing.
no, Laura is only saying number 8.
Number 8, okay.
Her comment only pointed to number 8. And first what I had to do was understand what number 8 is saying. And I had to put it in the context of the proposal that we're looking at right now at the zoning board.
Well,
The access road that goes up to the pit, West Street is paved up to the end.
If you
Then
don't
the
pave it,
access, the access road would start there.
Yeah.
What this number 8 is saying is that the first 50 feet of that access road has to be paved
in order
up
to,
to the point where it meets our paved road.
that's right, to lessen the wear on our paved road.
And to lessen all the stuff coming
Yeah.
off the truck tires
Yeah.
from coming onto our
Mhm.
pavement.
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that what it means? Did I read it right?
That's
I
how
think
took it.
think so.
You know, it's like having an apron on the
Yes,
top of your
right.
driveway when it meets the
it's a
pavement.
50-foot apron.
It,
So I
it
said-
also, if it's paved for 50 feet before you hit the pavement of West
Of West
Street,
Street. Mhm.
that means that any dust you accumulate from the site to the beginning of the paved apron, as you put
Mhm.
it,
Yeah.
that apron will dislodge any
Some of it.
debris
yeah,
or whatever
Yeah, hopefully a lot of it. Yeah.
before it
Before it
gets
hits the
onto town road.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
town road, yeah.
And you do specify minimum, so you could make it more,
Yes. Yes.
depending on the
Mhm, yes.
situation.
So I say leave that because that addresses an area that,
Mhm.
and I have a feeling Susan was probably thinking of that. That particular.
You know, this could
Could
be
have
the
been.
difference between a lawyer that's familiar with rural areas or
Mhm. Yeah.
and one that deals mostly with more city type scapes.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now so it was only number 8 that she had a problem with. So everything else I think is good.
I do too.
I saw one little word change. Number 5, drainage shall be maintained so as to prevent the accumulation of freestanding water for prolonged
For
periods.
long periods.
Yeah,
for long
I
periods.
just happened to catch that. Yeah. Okay. So page 7 is good.
We're getting there.
Yes. Page 8, nothing.
Yay!
Hey!
Okay.
We'll also have to send a little kudos to Caitlin for
Oh,
starting
yes.
this venture.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I already said to Martine, this is what we get for snickering. Oh, what's the rush? You know, and then whoa.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this at the top of page 9, Laura has a little comment. Are these supposed to be the criteria for waiver? And not,
Oh,
I think these are not subsets under number 2 on the previous page. I think these should be new 3, 4, and 5.
I agree with you.
They're not subsections under
No.
number 2. They are new numbers in and of themselves, I believe,
Yeah. that
with the
makes more
aquifers
sense.
and seasonal high water tables.
I agree.
So basically, we're moving them up a level in the outline format.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, on page 9, uppercase letter B, she had a problem with a piece in the middle of that. It's the piece that says, and the planning board may require more stringent reclamation standards as deemed necessary by the nature and scope of the operation.
Okay. Because that falls under DES too, reclamation of sand pits and quarries.
But what I also saw, when I looked at the next section, down at the very bottom of the page,
Okay.
that starts the very last two lines. The planning board or its designee shall periodically inspect that, and then it continues on to the next page. That was all inserted from Susan Slack's comments. I think they need to be moved up. They're not under incremental. They look like they're under incremental reclamation, but I don't think they are. I think those are actually
How the
standards.
site plan is,
I think those are
maintained.
more specific reclamation standards that we would be imposing. Now, okay.
I liked it, actually.
Well, you liked which piece?
Oh, I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
wait,
fine. I
okay.
jumped. I'm looking at two things together.
All right, what are we
So-
looking at now? I'm looking at page 10. We're still on page 9?
Yeah. The last two lines,
Yeah.
let's skip B for a minute up there. The last two lines on page 9.
Should
all
that
the way
be G? And then everything following it would have some letters?
I would put incremental reclamation as the last one. Because these that are listed on mostly on page 10,
Yeah,
these are, in a sense, specific reclamation standards that we could impose.
yeah.
So they all go before incremental.
Before F.
incremental.
So those would go from F through whatever, and then incremental would drop down as the last one. So if we do that, does that change anything back up on B?
No, yes, because those are more stringent.
Mm-hmm.
And we're saying we may require more stringent.
Maybe would these be listed as subset under B? Similar to what we did the last time, talking about, oh, I'm going to sneeze. No.
Yeah, that's not a bad
We
idea, Marty.
may have to play with this arrangement a little bit.
Yeah, they might belong
sense.
under, we're saying we have more standard, may consider.
In addition to the
stringent
minimum
reclamation,
standards,
And
in
then we enumerate them.
yeah, in addition to the minimum standards in the RSA, we also have these standards.
Yeah.
I think we may have to play with the arrangement a little bit to see how it works. But now I'm going to jump to page 10. And I like all of them with two exceptions.
Okay. And they are,
And let's see, on page 10, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph down. That says the planning board may require the elimination of any standing bodies of water. That is actually specifically in the RSA.
Yeah.
So we really don't need it. Because we've already said that they have to comply with the RSA.
oh, okay,
E5. So we can delete that one.
all right.
And the next one also. Upon completion of the reclamation operations, the topography of the land shall be left. And again, that's right from the RSA.
So what,
RSA.
you think that's overkill?
If we're going to repeat two pieces of the RSA, why aren't we repeating the whole thing?
Okay. All right.
I don't know.
Oh, well,
But
the
it
standing
is-
body, the standing bodies of water is that, is a health and safety issue.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah.
Not a,
Mhm,
land,
mhm.
soil. issue.
Those are the only two that I would eliminate. All of the others are more specific than what the RSA language is.
And we leave the character of the restored landscape shall blend with the surrounding.
That stays, that stays. That's more specific, yes. Mhm. Now, when we move that section around a little bit within the site reclamation standards, that may help us fix B, where she had the comment.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at, I think we'll have to look at that again a little bit. Okay. Page 11. Both of her comments, my comment is, I don't know. I think we need to figure this out. And I think, is it all refers back up to the sections above. And those are long wordy sections. And so I think
Yeah, who's
we
gonna
may
figure,
need-
who's gonna figure out this calculation? Don't look at me.
Okay, so that's
so the first one,
11B.
is there a confusion between option 3 and option 4? I don't.
Yeah, why can't I even say,
I think we need to work that out.
it's option 3?
The options are in that very first paragraph at the top of the page. We may need to make those a little more obvious rather than
Yeah, it's awful.
hidden in the
Yeah,
middle
those
of the
are-
paragraph.
Those
Yeah.
are, those paragraphs are very dense.
Mhm. But the options 1, 2, 3, and 4 are in that very top partial paragraph at the top of the page.
Right, for surety, the different options, which
Mhm.
you can spell it out this way, but sometimes the laws change also. So it's,
Yeah.
those were the same options even for subdivisions,
Were they? Okay.
except for 4, which is an escrow payment based on yardage.
So down in section E, where she's questioning whether we say option 3 or should it be option 4. I started to figure out and then I lost track. I confused myself. Is the only one that we explain is option 4. That's the only one we explain in detail.
Yeah, that's all of
Yeah. So
C.
I almost think she's right. I think in E, where we say option 3, it should be option 4, because that's the one that we do describe. And it's saying that other than that,
Because the other one is some form of surety, and then it gives you
Yeah.
4 different versions of how that, whether it's a bond or a letter of credit or
yeah. But I almost think she's right that it should say other than as provided in section 11B option 4.
Okay.
yeah.
I think it should say 4.
My eyes were crossing.
Yeah.
I agree.
Sometimes I almost need to diagram something out. But I think that one is, I think I agree with what Laura said.
Right, okay.
Then in F1. That language, again, E5B is in the RSA. E5B.
Can we just note the RSA?
It uses the phrase for good cause shown. That's the phrase that she's having problems with.
Okay. Oh, okay, see, that's not showing up on my copy.
Okay, yeah, that's why, yeah,
Okay.
it's hard. She highlighted just that
Okay.
one phrase, for good cause shown.
Which means, like with everything, when somebody comes before a board, especially a ZBA, it's up to
Mhm.
the applicant to show good cause for what they're asking for.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I say
Not
leave
because
that,
they just don't want to do it.
right, so I say leave that one.
Yep,
As
I agree
is,
with you.
okay. Page 12. Number 2, it was just a matter of double punctuation at the end of the sentence. It
Oh,
was hard to see.
there's, yeah, this little blue mark over
Yes.
the second period.
I had to enlarge it on the screen. Okay, and number 4, you're still on page 12. Number
Replacement.
4, she is right, it should say 3, not
Okay.
2.
That's
That's right in that RSA. Now, down at the bottom, under fees, she had a problem with the excavation permit fee and how we described what it was to be used for. Now, the RSA really doesn't get into fees particularly. This language, Caitlin found I would have to, in one of the other towns that she checked on.
Right.
And it's the phrase that, again, that she has a problem with is to defray the costs of permit compliance. And she says, what costs of permit compliance? You're allowed to impose fees to cover administrative expenses, review of documents, and other matters which may be required by particular applications like engineer review. How does this fall into that category?
Now, the other thing is always having to go through public hearings to amend costs if you
Mhm.
have them within the document itself.
Right.
Because even the filing fee, you could say the filing fee must include all advertising expenses, blah, 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 and cover the cost of certified mailings or whatever else.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
then we periodically update the application.
On the
itself.
application, yes.
All the costs are on the
On
application.
the application. That sounds like a good way to do this.
To do what, Marty? Have it within the ordinance
Don't cite a specific dollar amount
amount?
for one thing.
Because
Yeah,
they are apt to change.
The specific dollar amount will be on the application form.
Okay, oh, yes, I
Yeah.
think we discussed this.
Mhm. Yeah.
Something, yeah.
So number 1 would say something to the effect of filing fee
Will be on the application form.
a filing fee will cover advertising notices, will cover advertising plus a butter notices, and will be paid upon submission of the application, something along that line. So
We'll
kind
just
of,
leave out the dollar amount.
yeah, eliminating the dollar amounts and just fixing the wording a little bit.
it also keeps us from being stuck with a dollar amount in
Yes.
case, for any
Yes.
reason, the fee
Yeah.
should go up or down or
Yeah,
whatever.
We have to go
We're
through
not
changing
Yeah.
all of
tied
it.
into a particular amount.
it's easier to change the,
The
easier to change the
application,
application.
the ordinance.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
Now,
until we tweaked this with even the site plan review and the subdivision, we would follow whatever the post office was actually charging
Yes.
per certified. It would be, it's $645, it's $675, and it's like you'd have to
It's
change all your
$7.49.
applications.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
if you had it in you'd have to go through public hearing process to change it within your
within
documents.
within the ordinance. Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
explain that it covers all administrative expenses
Mhm.
to, administrate the
Yeah.
the application.
Mhm.
We don't need number 2.
So maybe we don't need number 2
I
at all.
don't think so. I would,
Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, some town does that somewhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you can take that one out.
Yeah, so we'll just delete that completely. Let's see. I think we're almost there. Page 14.
13 was just inserting the RSA at the top of the page.
Oh, yes, yes, I missed that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely. Okay, page 14. She just suggested renumbering one section.
Where are we renumbering, starting where?
Instead of 19 through 25,
1 through 7?
1 through 7. Page 15. She just changed the font of some sort. So that's okay. That's it.
Wow. That wasn't as painful as I thought.
No.
It was.
Oh,
No.
wait a minute, 16. It's changing on 16.
Oh, what did I, oh, oops.
You're not
I'm
gonna
sorry, yes,
jump
yes.
on here.
Okay, page 16. Suspensions and revocations. I looked at the RSA. The RSA has that first part. Planning basically has, the planning board may suspend or revoke a permit if the planning board determines that any provision of the permit has been violated or a material misstatement made in the application on which a permit was granted. That's basically what the RSA says. The second part does not have. So again,
It's going to that incidental stuff that she doesn't like
Yeah.
anything about incidental excavation.
the phrasing or any unsafe or hazardous conditions are determined by site inspection to exist or failure to correct any deficiency after notice.
I would say we leave that in because we may find a hazardous condition on an inspection.
And
Well, she-
just eliminate the last.
Well, she says it exceeds our statutory authority. That piece.
That first one or
No.
the second one when we
This-
go again about incidental excavation.
It's the same phrasing in the first part and second part.
Right. No, so she
She
objecting to
highlighted, I don't have the highlighted version
Oh,
right
you-
here.
No, I
She
don't have it.
highlighted it once, I think. But if her comment, I would assume the comment would be the same second half.
Yeah, I would think it was the second half because once again, it's incidental excavation, which she seems to have problems with from the get-go.
Yeah.
And if it's saying that you can revoke it for any misstatement on the application or that it's hazardous, then the second one just repeats that with the exception.
Oh, wait a minute. I did find my colored copy. Wait a minute.
Okay.
No, she highlighted it in the first part,
Huh.
Well,
Line-
whose authority is
line-
it?
line 3 and 4.
Well, if the planning
we
board
can-
is the regulator, then the regulator does not have the right to say, wait a minute here, you're in violation. Because you can revoke a site plan review decision.
Yeah, who would be the authority?
Enforcement would be the select board, probably. Would it be?
Enforcement action. There's no authority to suspend or revoke the permit.
See, the first part deals with the information, basically the information that's provided in the application. So if they if they violate a provision of the permit, or if they state something
Mhm.
on the application that's not true, we can suspend or revoke. But if we go up there and see it's unsafe or something is hazardous, do we have the authority to revoke the permit, or is there another body that has the enforcement? And I'm thinking now back to building enforcement. When we've found in the past, when we've found some issues with what's being done or what hasn't been done, our enforcement has gone eventually to the select board. Is this the same in this case?
Except that, again, as I say, planning board can revoke their own decisions on
Mhm.
site plan regulations. I looked it up and that's where I was threatened to be sued.
Okay.
Remember?
There's site plan regulations that the planning board has instituted.
Well, aren't we instituting this one too?
Yeah,
Enforcement, would that be a code enforcement? It's not
could
a
be.
code, but
That's-
it's not a code violation.
well, if it's unsafe or hazardous, it might be.
Wait.
I don't
Here we
know.
go.
Oh, something, you're in doubt.
155E:10, enforcement. The regulator, planning board, or
Which-
its duly
okay.
authorized agent may suspend or revoke the permit of any person who has violated any provision of his permit or
Mhm.
this chapter, or made a material misstatement in the application upon which his permit was granted.
Yes, that's
Such
the first
suspension
part.
or revocation shall be subject to the motion for rehearing thereon.
Yeah.
It says the regulator. In the very beginning, the regulator in the RSA is the planning board
Yes.
unless otherwise appointed by
Yeah.
what?
So
Legislative action?
what you just read is the first 2.5 lines of what we have here.
Then do we just get rid of the incidental excavation thing?
I say we get rid of the or any unsafe or hazardous conditions piece.
Oh, because that's subjective?
Well,
No.
wait a minute. It says the permit of any person who has violated any provision of his permit.
Of the
Now, if you've
permit.
given him his permit
That's-
saying that there's not going to be any hazardous conditions, and there are, he's violated the conditions of his permit.
I see. Yeah.
Okay.
Do I sound like a lawyer?
Yeah. Raise your voice a little bit more, Susan.
Oh,
Or is it the incidental excavation portion with?
no, she didn't highlight it in the second
Yeah.
half.
And again, it goes even further here,
It's
though.
the same, yeah.
In addition, the regulator or a person directly affected by such violation may seek an order from the superior court requiring the violator to cease and desist. So it doesn't say that the governing body has anything to do with this. It's the regulator or
Mhm.
anybody can bring it to court.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said there's no authority to suspend or revoke the permit. So what do we want to do with this? Do we
This
wanna
may
put the-
be,
do we
I
want to
think-
put the statute in there for RSA?
well, no, I think we need to get clarification on this one. And we've got those couple other places we wanted clarification on. We may ask, I'm tending towards asking both Laura and Susan Slack to clarify those comments.
And then we combine
No, I'm kind of interested to see
how they look at
how
it.
Susan Slack reacts to Laura Spector Morgan's comment.
Yes, since we have other things that need to be clarified, I would agree, have that clarified.
Because at the beginning,
I mean,
I would too.
we aren't asking, there's not very many things
no,
to be clarified, and it shouldn't take
yeah,
them very much
Most everything we've sorted out.
Yes. Gee, thanks.
Yeah, because if you go back to the RSA, under their definitions, number 3, regulator means the planning board of a city or town, or if a town at an annual or special meeting duly warned to the purpose so provides, the selectmen of the town or the board of adjustment.
But the first line,
But the
regulator,
first
is the
line
planning board.
is it's the planning board unless
board.
decided otherwise.
Yeah, yeah.
So as the regulator, you then have the right to suspend or revoke a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be fun to.
Yeah. So
So again, if she doesn't want to mention incidental excavation, fine, but the opening statement is in keeping with what the RSA says exactly. It's not.
I didn't make it up.
but the RSA does not mention the unsafe or hazardous conditions. There's the difference with the RSA, and there must be something that triggered her there, but we need to find out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess
but
because it says if they violated any of the conditions of their permit. So if you just say that, then I guess that covers any hazardous conditions created, because we're obviously not going to give them approval to have hazardous conditions.
Yeah, and we say that all their fueling operations have to be done in a certain area and containment has to be in place. That would be, and we found they didn't do that. That would be unsafe or hazardous conditions, but it would be part of their permit process.
Well, her quibble here does seem to say in her last thing, there's no authority to suspend or revoke a permit. And
yet she only
that's right
highlighted
there
that.
in the RSA that you can.
Yeah, but she only highlighted the specific unsafe or hazardous.
Well, she's
But she
not
doesn't say you can't.
horrible.
She didn't say you have no. She said she didn't say you can't specify those conditions. She said you have no authority to suspend, and that's not the correct quibbling.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll figure that one out.
So what is it? Maybe 5 points that need to be clarified?
I'm not sure if it's even that many.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few corrections and jiggling things around, and one or two to bring up to say how we clarify this, and otherwise it looks like we've worked through the.
I think there's really only about 3 things that we need clarified.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're so close to being there.
So close, it's so far away. I can almost touch it.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Well, how much fun was that?
That was an exercise.
It
this
is.
has to be the most dense ordinance we have on the books in town.
It really is. Okay.
Depending on the zoning board, we might need this.
We might. We don't know.
Nope.
All up in the air still.
Yeah, well, they don't have to make the decision next week.
No.
If he closes the public hearing next week, they still have
Then
another month to make a decision.
Right.
That's right. The public hearing wasn't closed. Oh, yeah, you're right.
No, we
Yeah.
made a point of, you do not have to make an immediate decision if you need more information.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Yes. Yes.
Your institutional knowledge came into play.
Okay. I think we are done for tonight. So if there's nothing else from anybody, I will declare the meeting closed.